Sonic and Mufasa finally go head-to-head in our pre-Christmas grudge match. We finally get our first look at David Corenswet as Superman, and so much more on this episode of Beyond the Screen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Beyond the Screen. I'll be your host today, Ryan Gum, and as always, I'm joined by Jake Holtzclaw. Jake, how you doing?
Doing all right, man.
Good. Having a fun week?
I'm having a great week. I recently, and I'll do a spoiler. We are doing a Christmas special, so you'll hear this episode first, and then we'll have a Christmas special come out. So what I've been doing all week is watching Christmas movies, and boy, can I say it's hard to find time to watch movies back to back like I used to in college.
I guess for a film pod, it probably is bad to say, but I understand exactly what you mean. Wait, we're your film knowledge people, but by the way, it's hard to watch movies.
Well, I mean, I used to come home from class with my buddy Donovan Lanehart, and we would just crush movies that night. And we didn't have class till like 10 a.m. in the morning, so we could crush movies and then go to class. He'd crash on my couch, and I lived in an apartment at the time, so we would just crush movies 2 or 3 a night, just just enjoy ourselves. Now 3 movies in a night, like after work, or unheard of. You can't even do it, man.
No, I'd be lucky to get one. And by the way, shout out Donnie. I know you're listening out there. Thank you for being you. And for those who don't know Donnie, you will get to know him because he's probably going to be a guest at some point. By the way, we're bringing on guests at some point. But anyway, yeah, no, I completely understand. It's tough getting 2 movies, which can you imagine being just someone who's kind of like I don't want to say a casual, but like not in our field, doesn't have the same interest, maybe listening to this going, hey, tell me what's going on. That's why we're here. We've got a stacked news list this week. A lot's been going on, specifically things we've been talking about the past few weeks. Sonic and Mufasa go head-to-head, and Jake, I'm happy to report my All In on Black hit. Sonic is dominating Mufasa.
Whatever, man. I'm gonna be a sore loser about it.
I'm reaching across the table, and I am just very slowly and dramatically pulling all of the Beyond the Screen bucks back towards me because I hit. Sonic 3 opens with the pre-Christmas holiday weekend Friday, all by itself, earning $25.6 million. That was its opening day, with a current estimate of $62 million. Now, if you've been with the show previously, you'll understand that usually we record and upload on Monday night. With the holiday rolling around, we wanted to get you guys stuff a little bit earlier, so not every one of these numbers, in fact, all of these numbers, are going to be estimates. Sorry about that. We don't have we can't look into the future, and we don't have any contacts to say what's going on. Plus, there's still some films being viewed at this moment as we record. So currently, $62 million is what the weekend looks like for Sonic, with an estimate that could be up to $70 million for Sonic. That is just below Sonic 2's opening number at $72 million. So Sonic 3, from one film to the other, kind of holding pace. This is Sonic 3 this is the second highest rated video game movie ever, being loved by both fans and critics alike across all platforms. People love this movie. Reminder, Sonic and Mufasa, if you've once again been listening the past few weeks, have been tracking back and forth the entire time that people have been looking forward to this matchup. As of recently, Sonic was tracking for $60 million and Mufasa for $50 million. So even in the last few weeks, Sonic was slowly starting to edge Mufasa, but no one in their right mind would have ever thought that Mufasa would have had as bad of an opening weekend as they have. Currently on Friday, they opened...
Hey, weekend's not over, though. I will point that out. It ain't over.
No, but as we were talking
they could be packing theaters as we speak right now for that 7 o'clock showing and make another $90 million right here.
Across the nation, families are swarming their local theaters to watch Mufasa. That's what you're saying is happening.
They've had enough of Sonic 3, and they're like, let's go see these lions.
That's okay. Yeah. You know what? I hope you're right, because that'd be kind of funny if we come back next week and I had to metaphorically push all my chips back. Like, oh man, I was all of 2.5 days correct, and then your prediction became true. I don't think that's going to happen, as Mufasa opened with a $13.3 million on Friday. which is almost less than half of what Sonic was able to pull in. Currently tracking to make 35 million, which is a steep loss on the predictions chart for Mufasa. On top of that, Mufasa's kind of divided the ratings a little bit. Critics give it a 56, which is kind of respectable. You want that 60 range. You don't necessarily want to be below 60 or 65. So 56, not a great look. That is above the critic reviews for The Lion King, the 2019 original, so which was at a 51. Audiences, though, they gave the film an A- for the cinema score. So, Jake, we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit. Obviously, we're giving each other a hard time here, but in all seriousness, what are your thoughts on the weekend results thus far?
Disappointed. I'm not going to count the chickens yet, like some people in this podcast, but um, yeah, it is a disappointment. I will say it probably on the global scale, we'll see the longevity of it, just like other, the other Lion King and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's not over. It's just the first week. Come on, man.
No, and hey, I don't like to. I'm not going to assume or just let this stand. Okay, I'm not putting all my eggs in a basket just yet. But it is 7 o'clock on Sunday, and we're still Mufasa's still domestically not barely half of what Sonic has. So I don't like to think I'm jumping the gun too far. But I will say you bring up domestically, and that is an interesting little note here because Sonic has yet to release internationally, I should say. Sonic is yet to release internationally. Mufasa has, and Mufasa internationally has brought in over 87 million. So its worldwide total is over 100 million. So it's not like Disney's suffering. Just when you compare the two, when this was kind of like we described at the very top of the show, it's a grudge match. So it's losing to Sonic only domestically because Sonic's not yet to release internationally. So that'll be an interesting. That's a great point to bring up because what will international audiences see Sonic as? Because domestically, overwhelmingly so, they're going out to see Sonic 3, which, again, I saw more marketing for, which, as you pointed out last week, might have just been because I'm not a part of the demographic that would like a Mufasa. And I will say that is correct. I was more excited personally for Sonic 3. But if that is anything, if that is any indicator, I should say, of what's happening, I would say that the marketing just was better for Sonic than it was Mufasa because I've barely seen anything of it. Sonic 4, they've already released. Sonic 4 will be out in theaters in 2027. Sorry about that, everybody. Jake, what do you think will happen moving forward?
I'm surprised they've already doubled down. I mean, they just released Sonic 3 and it's like, yeah, well, we'll make a fourth. We'll make a fourth. That makes me wonder, because I thought it was this script that Jim Carrey said that it has to be golden for him to come back to act in general, right? Was it acting in general that he would come back if somebody handed him a golden script and then he said, yeah, I'll do Sonic 3.
Yeah.
What does the script have to look like for Sonic 4 for Jim Carrey to come back? It's going to be diamond encrusted with, rubies and emeralds.
Delivered on a silver platter on his doorstep.
Yeah.
No,
I think he was just looking for somebody to come ask him. He's like, I don't know, I might, it's like, dude, just do Sonic 3.
I might,
like, okay.
I might retire, guys. I'm not getting enough jobs. And the thing is, the internet's kind of giving it, again, funny point you bring up Jim Carrey. The internet's kind of giving him a hard time because he had said, hey, I'm going to retire. I need that golden crusted script. And now he's talking about, hey, I'd love to play The Mask again. I'd love to play The Grinch again. Motion capture for The Grinch would be a game changer and all these different things. Some people are saying he ran out of money, which with Jim Carrey, I doubt his entire career just went down the drain in 2 years. Hopefully not. So I doubt that. But, maybe it's one of those things. It's like you don't realize how much you love something, even if it's your career, until you stop doing it. Or it's like what the phrase is like, you don't know how much you love something till it's gone. So it could very easily be that he just stepped away from acting, realized how much he missed it, how much he enjoyed the camaraderie that comes with making such a big project, and he's back, And I don't think that there's nothing wrong with one, taking a break or taking a little hiatus and realizing that you kind of what you're made for, and two, changing your mind. I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't necessarily see this as kind of what the internet is insinuating about Jim Carrey being a kind of losing all his money and coming back and saying, actually, a paycheck would be kind of nice. Looking at the rest of the box office, Wicked finally overtakes Moana 2 in the box office after multiple weeks of Moana being on top of Wicked, albeit 1 and 2, not 3 and 4. Wicked at number 3 earns $13.5 million on the weekend, with its overall domestic budget being $383 million, almost $384 million. Moana 2, as we said, at 4, with just under that 13.5 mark at 13.1, bringing its domestic total to $359 million. At 5, a new release from Angel Studios, which we've seen a little bit from Angel Studios in our now 5 weeks of Beyond the Screen. Homestead. I don't know exactly what this film is, but if you're interested in what the synopsis reads from IMDb, it's amid chaos, ex-Green Beret joins compounds. Love grows, truths arise, and a community unites. If that sounds like something you're interested in, go check it out. Seems like an interesting movie. At 6, Gladiator 2, continuing its trend in the top 10 with $4,450,000 on the weekend, bringing its domestic total to 153, almost 154 million. Kraven the Hunter, still in the top 10 at 7, dropping far from its number 3 ranking last week with just over 3 million on the weekend. Total gross domestically is almost 17 and a half. Not looking good for Sony and Aaron Taylor Johnson. At 8, Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, with 1.2 million on the weekend, with its total being 7 million. At number 9, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, continuing its streak in the top 10 at 9, with just under 1 million on the weekend, 38 million in its run domestically. And at 10, you have A24's Queer, starring Daniel Craig. Jake, any of those stand out to you outside of the top 2?
Not so much. Craven dropping a 7 pretty quick after, I mean, this is the second week, or is it the third week? So pretty quickly dropping a 7, reinforcing the flop that is kind of what Sony's been putting out. There's actually an A24 film that's right at 11 called The Brutalist, right underneath Queer. We'll see if that happens. I didn't see any marketing on that one at all. I'm not even sure what it is. The Brutalist, when visionary architect Laszlo Toth and his wife, a name I cannot pronounce, flee post-war Europe in 1947 to rebuild their legacy and witness the birth of modern America. Their lives are changed forever by a mysterious wealthy client. So that's an A24 film. If that interests you, go watch it. They have only made $266,791 in a week. So nobody's really watching that, but only 4 theaters. It's only in 4 theaters. No wonder.
I'm happy you brought up The Brutalist. It actually stars Adrian Brody, and it seems very interesting in the fact that it's at 11, competing with Queer, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which are in hundreds of theaters. It's only got 4, and it's right there.
I wonder, that makes me wonder. So I do take it back. If that's something that interests you, good luck finding the theater that's showing it. Do let us know if you know what theater it is. But I love Adrian Brody, so I don't doubt that his performance is stellar. But yeah, that was just me saying, hey, there's also another A24 film, which is, I don't know if that's rare to see 2 coming from the same distributor, but for like A24, it might be because they're a little bit more, excuse me if I'm wrong, indie, I would say. Am I wrong there?
No, and I mean, A24 is definitely more mainstream now than it was before. But if you look at the total theaters that the 2 A24 films in this top 11, that is again Queer and The Brutalist, combined, they're in 383 theaters across the nation. Look at the numbers above them. The closest in terms of films released in theaters domestically, I guess I should say, in the nation, is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which is in 861 theaters. So those 2 are competing. A24, again, a popular, yes, they're definitely more indie. They're not going to compete with like Warner Brothers in terms of money, right? But despite being in a fraction of the movie theaters, they've got 2 films in the top 11 of the box office with low marketing. People are looking for them, which I think is a good point for A24.
Yeah, they definitely have a different style of storytelling, and they generally tell stories that are, I can't predict them at the very least. Like The Menu, I'll bring that up. Ryan didn't really care for The Menu. I thought it was all over the place. I liked it because it was a story I didn't feel was told before, and it had me kind of on the edge of the seat. It's like, well, how is she going to get out of this? And I haven't felt like that in a while. So A24 has always had those movies that are kind of like off the beaten path kind of deal.
Oh yeah, and I think that's what kind of is is their appeal. That's their draw. Is that like in a world of remakes and live action takes and sequels and prequels and Marvel and DC, you have A24 sticking it out with really original, or I guess I should say with originality. So yeah, no, I definitely can see why they're at where they're at in terms of a company, but also, again, you've not heard anything about these films in terms of marketing, but there they are.
Yeah. Anything else other than, I mean, Homestead. So Homestead, I read was, um, I believe it's a TV series. Was it First? No, they are coming out with Homestead the series as well. So there's, I'm not sure where the actor in the movie. So the who's the evil guy in the poster, or not evil guy? So he's an actor. He plays a bunch of evil guys. Um, Gosh, who is he? You know what I'm talking about?
I
I'm
do know
sorry.
exactly.
I'm
No,
rambling
I
at
know
this point.
exactly. Neil McDonough.
Neil McDonough. So he's on a lot of the posters, but there's another guy who's on the poster for the series, and so I'm not sure what the and Neil McDonough is not on any of the marketing I'm looking at on the series. So
Which is interesting. So if you watch this and you know more about it, give us some feedback in the comments below. I'd love to hear about what's going on with Neil McDonough. I know he's kind of seen a career resurgence in the past 5 years. He was in Suits. He's in The Tulsa King, and so on and so forth. He's a very popular actor, and yes, he is mostly a villain. So I'd be interested to see what goes on with his character in the film that doesn't necessarily have him translating to the series.
I mean, it seems like it's the same synopsis. Like what you read off, I would assume it was off like IMDb or something for the movie, was almost the same exact thing for the series.
Yeah. Well, and so before I butchered the synopsis, and I apologize, the idea of a prepper compound in terms of a dramatic tool in terms of story is really interesting to me, especially when the main character who's played by McDonough is a Green Beret. So there's a lot that can happen in this, and it almost reminds me of like a modern day Yellowstone. Like that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this, at least from all of the marketing and from the synopsis.
Yeah, I'm actually watching the trailer right now, and I'm not. I can't tell if it's Neil who's the main character, or there's the character's name is Neil's character is Ian Ross, and then there's Bailey Chase who plays Jeff Erickson, and they're both like heavily in this trailer. So I'm actually not sure who the ex Green Beret is because the IMDb page doesn't call either out.
Interesting.
I think it's Neil. I think it's Neil McDonough.
I think that this is just a good way to say, hey, go watch this and fill us in. We'll
yeah,
go watch
yeah,
it.
Go, and hell, I might even do it too. But yeah, the Bailey Chase is the guy who's on all of the TV show marketing. So that's odd. That's very weird how they're playing that game. Anyway.
Yeah, but again,
What
Homestead at 5 from Angel Studios with just over 6 million on the weekend. And that, my friends, is our first segment. Coming up after the break, the first trailer for James Gunn's Superman graced our screens this past weekend, and it looks amazing. Just FYI, spoiler, I think it looks fantastic. And also, Trouble in Paradise, if you're looking forward to the next era of James Bond at Amazon MGM, you might be waiting a while. This after the break. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You've made it to segment 2, Major News. Starting off our news segment, the first teaser trailer for the new DCU Superman has released, giving us our first look at David Corenswet as Supes, Rachel Brosnan as Lois Lane, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, Crypto the Superdog, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner with his reddish blonde bowl cut. Jake, what are your thoughts on the trailer?
I think it's got a lot of different comic book characters that we've not seen before on the big screen. So, if you don't mind, I'll go through some of them that you've got written down here. So we've got, the Crypto, the dog, Lex Luthor, Nathan Fillion as a Green Lantern. We've got Mr. Terrific. There's even Stag Industries is going to be in this. So I think it's Simon Stagg. He's probably going to be in this. So it's a lot of people and I mean, even big names actors wise, but a lot of people from the comics that we've not seen before. And so it's packed. It's movie's packed. It makes me worried. Like, how are we going to see it all? Is this movie going to be 3 hours long? We can only hope,
Yeah, and it makes me immediately worry when you name off all those characters. The first thing I think of is Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi. There were too many characters, and that only was a fraction of the characters you've listed. In that film, you had Venom, obviously, you had Spider-Man, you had Green Lantern, you had Sandman. that felt too much. That was packed. There was too much going on, and that is still not anywhere near the list that you said for the Superman movie, which adds to the worry. However, I will say this is kind of where I think its saving grace is that this is not anywhere near any sort of story that has been told. Where Spider-Man 3 kind of lost its point was that that was obviously a continuation of one specific story. Superman starts, yes, as James Gunn had said, in the middle of the action. There is nothing before it. So I think there's a lot more room to play with. There's a lot more leeway to say, hey, this is actually what's happening, and you can put these characters specifically where they need to be. So not only are we starting in the middle of the action, other details we know about Superman, the movie, Lois and Clark already know each other, with Gunn specifically stating, quote, it's a complicated relationship as always. That's why we're here. We love the little situationships. Mr. Terrific, as you said, he's got a huge part in the plot, apparently, as this movie continues on its summer release date. Lex Luthor already hates Superman. In the film, or in the teaser trailer, I should say, if you watched the very beginning, Superman calls Krypto, which, by the way, Krypto looks amazing. I know, Jake, you kind of had some reservations about his look, which I'll let you get into in a minute, but I think he looked adorable. In that moment, when he calls him, you see him, he runs, he's sprinting towards Superman at supersonic speed. You see snow getting kicked up, and it looks amazing. He gets to Superman, and Superman said, take me home, dragging Superman through the snow by his cape. Something that was interesting is that Corin Sweat would go on to say, where do you think home is? Do you think he's going to drag him all the way to Oklahoma or Kansas, wherever they're at, somewhere in the Midwest? And home could be the Fortress of Solitude, which would be a really interesting visual to see. We didn't get to see it in the teaser, but that's something to think about. Jake, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Krypto.
I thought Krypto, I mean, he's a cute dog. I mean, I thought they, I don't know what I was expecting breed wise, but I mean, I think they chose a decent one to go with. I'm not sure what the breed is actually, but white dog, of course. But I don't know. Something about in the trailer, it just didn't look like the dog was there to me. It looked definitely fake. I think it looked computer generated. But I could be wrong. They could have had a real dog there, and he looked so realistic. It looked fake. That's not confirmed yet. So. But I know there's technology out there that can have a real looking dog. I think even, God, what is it? Guardians of the Galaxy had that Russian astronaut dog.
Mm-hmm.
That the name escapes me. So, and that one looked a whole lot more real than Krypto did in this trailer. So I'm hoping it's just that trailer esque look to it, and it'll look a whole lot better in theater. But I don't know. I loved him. He looked very cute, and we'll see where he takes him. I'm thinking it's Fortress of Solitude, but they could always do that change up where Krypto thinks home is, would you say Oklahoma?
Or Kansas, I think.
Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore, and then Krypto takes him home
I don't know.
after
To be honest
Superman
with you,
clicks his red heels.
I cannot remember where he landed. I swear it's Kansas, but I could be way wrong. I've not watched anything Superman media in a long time, so this has me really excited. We're going back to some details for the film. The flying action is more practical, shot with drones. A lot of fun stuff. It was inspired by Top Gun Maverick. If you saw the quick scene in the teaser, he looks like, I mean, it looks real. It looks insane. And when you get that detail from Gunn that it is inspired by Maverick, and you kind of watch how the camera moves with the cape and with Superman as he kind of rounds a corner, it looks like some shot from Top Gun Maverick. So that is for me, that is kind of what sold me on it a little bit, was the idea that, hey, this isn't going to be the Zack Snyder CGI era. This is more practical, which is exciting. I know that kind of takes a step away from what you were saying about Krypto, how he looked a little bit fake, but I'm excited for what practically this film will look like. Moving on, Corin Sweat himself apparently.
Well, hold on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Maybe the drones in New Jersey, that's just for a movie.
Oh.
Maybe like all of this stuff that's going on right now, not to get, current day news on a film podcast, but maybe they're just shooting a film. Maybe they're
That could be
getting
it.
creative with all the drones in New Jersey.
That could be it. For those that don't know, there's been a lot of weird drone sightings, so much so that news outlets have brought on like professors in drone piloting to talk about what is safe and what is not. So a lot of that would actually be an interesting idea. Is that, I mean, in that northeast section of the United States, that is kind of what Metropolis is like supposed to be like, right? Like, it's supposed to be like one of those northeastern cities. Same with Gotham. So who's to say they're not up there for shooting reasons in that way? Could be conspiracy theory, film conspiracy theory. I'm all for it. Moving on, Core and Sweat apparently influenced Superman's suit, specifically the decision to bring back the infamous trunks, his red trunks that we've not seen in live action for a really long time. Quote, Superman wants kids to not be afraid of him. He's an alien with incredible powers, so he dresses like a professional wrestler, which I think is an interesting way to get into the head of the character. Speaking of the head of the character, James Gunn also in another interview was explaining why Legacy, if you remember when the film was initially teased, I'd say close to a year ago now, it was called Superman Legacy. That was dropped because Gunn thought, quote, maybe this title was looking back feeling about it, and this isn't about looking back. This is about looking forward. Gunn further explained that audiences would understand where the legacy comes from once they watch the film, specifically asking the question, whose legacy is he, being Superman, really? Does the film set up any future films? No. F it, according to James Gunn. This does not set up anything in terms of DC. This is a standalone story that will continue in one way, shape, or form down the line. Jake, this film, Superman, the trailer, passed 22.5 million viewers in its first 24 hours, which marks the fastest post-COVID trailer to hit 25 million views. What do you think about how this film will fare next summer?
I think it'll be a pretty big hit. I think it's got enough, as we talked about before, enough people that we've never seen before. You're going to get the comic nerds in there. Now, are they going to be happy with it? Who's to say? Probably not, but you've got enough people in there. Mr. Terrific. So he's who's playing Mr. Terrific? Do we know?
Yes. Let me look it up real quick.
Eddie Gathegi is set to play Mr. Terrific, and so I think he's already a great actor. I loved him in X-Men First Class, and reluctantly so, I liked him as his character in Twilight, the first Twilight. Reluctantly so because I don't necessarily come out and say, yeah, I've watched Twilight more than once, whether or not I've been influenced by a girlfriend, but I liked him in that. So I look forward to seeing his performance as this new character we've not seen before. But what I think it will do, I think it's going to be positive regardless. Now, is it going to be Moana 2, Wicked, massive 383 million? Probably not. But I have higher hopes than like Kraven the Hunter,
I don't know. I'm very, as I've said this entire time, I'm very excited for this. The practical effects, the idea of new characters in a new environment with a fresh beginning. Like I've really liked Creature Commandos. I love everything James Gunn's saying about how he's going to run this franchise and this extended universe. Not to call it the DCEU again, but the DCU. I think it will fare very well. I think that I would love to see who it competes against. That's what I'm most excited about, is who are they going to go up against next summer? Moving on, a damning report about the development of the next James Gunn installment dropped from the Wall Street Journal this past week. After 3 years of owning the franchise, Amazon MGM and the James Bond lead producer, whose name is Barbara Broccoli. Now, Barbara has been over creative control of the character for over 30 years. Those two parties are at an ugly stalemate, according to reports, over the future of the character, with no script or story for that matter in the works as we speak. Development has completely stalled. No one can agree on anything, and it doesn't seem there's going to be a lot of movement in the near future. Amazon is interested in making spin-off projects, including turning the series itself into a potential streaming service show, while neither side can agree if James Bond is even a hero. That's how far apart they are. You've got one side trying to turn them into a Marvel-esque TV show, and the other side can't even say that the guy is a productive member of society. With one Amazon executive saying, quote, I have to be honest, I don't think James Bond is a hero, which aligns with Barbara. Jake, the executives at Amazon, do they even understand the character that they bought?
Well, I'll take it back to this. So I just bought like a toaster. I should be able to put bread in it and then make toast. So, and I know that's far off from movies, but I bought James Bond. I should be able to tell a James Bond story. That's one side of this argument. And I hate to take that Amazon side. But it's like we just paid for MGM. We got the rights to James Bond. If Amazon wants to do a series or do a movie and then take it straight to streaming. They can do that. Now, whether or not it'll be good, that's another thing. But is James Bond a good guy or a bad guy? I always known him to be a good guy. I mean, I go back to Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery. I always thought he was killing the evil guy, you know? So to hear that he might not be a good guy anymore, I'm all for it because an evil James Bond would be awesome.
I think it's a little disconcerting that because the thing is that exactly what you said. Think about what James Bond was before 2005. He was a little bit of a cartoon character, right? Like the series was a little bit more silly. It was a little bit more. It didn't take itself too seriously until Daniel Craig got in there. Now, according to, as we said, these reports, Barbara Broccoli has been the creative lead on this character for over 30 years. That would mean that she was there for that transition. That would mean that she got in right as this character was in the height of its cartoonish characterization, right? The fact that we've gotten so far away from that because obviously James Bond is a positive character, at least in the early stages, until, again, Daniel Craig, where Daniel Craig kind of brought that little bit of that gray area. He's still our hero, but there were a lot of things he did and a lot of things he couldn't accomplish that made you think, is he a good guy? Is he still positive? Which I think I understand in that note with Daniel Craig. I understand where Broccoli's coming from. However, if you've come so far from where this character initially was that you can't even agree with the new distributor what the character is in terms of a good guy or a bad guy, I think that says a lot about where you are for a franchise. And not just in terms of, what do you do next, but your current understanding of the character. And I think that is probably where it's time to say, hey, we need to get someone new in here that understands the character better or who can bring something new to the character, which, again, I'm not siding with Amazon, mainly because, and here's an interesting stat for you, No Time to Die grossed over 774 million worldwide. That's almost $1 billion movie alone, and that was in the finale of the last series, the last iteration, right? So on one hand, you can say, hey, let those who've created and done so successfully with this character in this medium, let them create the way they have been. On the other, it is, again, disconcerting that this producer, this creative content driver for this character who's dedicated her entire career to the character, can't even tell you whether the character is a good guy or a bad guy because they've lost sight so far. Like that's problematic to me.
It is, and it's. I mean, I'm looking at all of the Daniel Craig ones, and after 2005, and they have done significantly better than pretty much every James Bond movie before it. I think all of them grossing more, adjusted for inflation, of course, because the first one was in 1962 with Sean Connery, that being Dr. No.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at this table here, and it's almost double. I mean, the first time we saw Daniel Craig was almost double about the average of the other ones. So they're doing it right. They're kind of that gray area you're talking about between, he's now more serious. We don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, and that seems to work. Every last one being in 2021. So that's why I'm not necessarily opposed to seeing where someone might take the character, and I was never opposed to seeing James Bond the gender swap. So it's like, if you think you can tell a James Bond story with a woman, go right ahead. Now, will it change the whole character? Maybe, but I'm here to see a British spy shoot some bad guys and see some like absurd villain plan, like firing a rocket at the moon to make it rain. I don't know, money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want to see that. I just want to see the cartoonish side of it still, but I know I'm not going to see that.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up about what is called Moneypenny, and that is the female 007. So let's take a step back a bit, and again go back to Barbara Broccoli. She has complained that Amazon isn't a good home for Bond since the company's core business is selling everything from toilet paper to vacuums. And keep that in mind, because she is not the first creator to have this take and this issue, taking this issue with Amazon in this year even. But moving along, some further detail about why Broccoli and Amazon might be at odds here. When MGM sold to Amazon 3 years ago, former executives at then a standalone MGM reportedly ensured or tried to ensure that Amazon would commit to keeping the character and its future projects on the big screen, opposed to these streaming platform releases. However, Broccoli, in the 3 years since, has had to fend off multiple spin-off attempts, with once again being one of them being a Money Penny series. Broccoli supposedly responded, quote, "Did you even read the contract?" This continues a rocky absorption of MGM, as Doug Liman, who we've talked about a couple of weeks ago here on Beyond the Screen, notoriously went ballistic earlier this very year when his film, which was a modern, edgier take on the 1989 classic Roadhouse, was released exclusively to Prime instead of to theaters, as was promised upon point of sale from MGM to Prime. Lyman wrote an opinion piece for Deadline in January of this year saying, quote, "When Amazon bought MGM, they announced that they would put $1 billion into theatrical motion pictures, releasing at least 12 a year, 12 motion pictures a year. They touted it as the largest commitment to cinemas by an internet company. I can tell you that they then did to me and my film Roadhouse, which is the opposite of what they promised when they took over MGM." Lyman would continue later in the year, when being interviewed by IndieWire in support of another movie, explained that he has nothing against streaming as a platform, but in how Amazon conducted business with that specific project, that again being Roadhouse, stating, quote, "We made the movie for MGM to be in theaters. Everyone was paid as if it were going to be in theaters. Then Amazon switched it on us. Forget about the effect on the industry. 50 million people saw Roadhouse. I didn't get a cent. Jake Gyllenhaal didn't get a cent. Producer Joel Silver didn't get a cent. That's wrong." Jake, what are your thoughts on Amazon's struggles? Because that's where I'm interested. It's always Amazon. This year in particular, it's always been Amazon with having these issues with their creators and the switch to streaming releases, or trying to change content to a more streamer-friendly rather than cinematic releases, even though they bought a strictly cinematic company, that being MGM. And on top of that, who do you side with in terms of Barbara Broccoli, Amazon or her?
I think Amazon or Broccoli is a little bit harder of a side to choose. I will say that I've never really liked Disney or Amazon, just big corporation, and how they run it, because ethically speaking, what Amazon did with the switch on Roadhouse is horribly wrong. Like, would you even have Jake Gyllenhaal if you told him up front before making the movie that it was going straight to streaming? Probably not. Would you have all these people making this movie, good or bad? Would they even make it if they knew they weren't going to get paid for it? No, probably not. So, ethically speaking, Amazon will be in the wrong. Now, yeah, Broccoli not knowing a character that they fought for 30 plus years. Come on, man. I don't know, but I commend the fighting off of spin-off series and watering down the James Bond character. I mean, I'm looking here. I don't know how many movies this is, from Sean Connery's 1962 to Daniel Craig 2021, but that's a lot of James Bonds, dude. That's a lot. That's someone you can it's one of those film not categories, one of those film folders that you just have, and it's like, well, I wonder who the next one's going to be in this decade. It seems like we get a new one every decade.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Daniel Craig was the 2010s and held on till 2021. Maybe we'll get a new one. Maybe we'll have a new James Bond. But that just seems like the way it's always been. So I don't blame Barbara for being a little bit more hesitant, because when they choose a James Bond, they stick with it for several films.
Yeah, and I think, sticking with kind of the question about who do you side with, Amazon or Barbara, I think Barbara's completely in the right to defend what was the original agreement. I don't think she's anywhere near being incorrect for saying, look, we had this agreement about sticking with James Bond in terms of what his release pattern would be cinematically, with a lot of big budget, right? With a A-list actor in the role, with no spin-offs and no streaming, right? I can understand that. But at the end of the day, I have kind of like, again, this is a dual-edged sword for my thoughts. One, everyone has had their day, right? Everyone has their day in a certain role. And I think Barbara, if you can't even remember if the character is a hero or not, I think it might be your sign to go, because you're too convoluted in what that hero could be. right? Once again, you think about what Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan were. Again, they were more cartoony. I know we've said that again and we keep harping on it, but at the end of the day, those guys were. Think about what Dr. No was. He was a complete architect of a straight up villain, a super villain, right? There is no way that Sean Connery was anything other than a hero. So I think in that regard, I think maybe you do look at someone new to fill those shoes in terms of a storyteller for James Bond or a creative drive for that series. Another thing too, and I hate to say it, we're in a time of streaming. That I don't think that's shocking to anybody. Amazon Prime is a streaming first platform. So I don't think it is in their worst interest to say, hey, maybe we do look to release some projects straight to streaming. And I hate that they did exactly what they did to Lyman and Roadhouse. I hate that they went this kind of backdoor route to say, look, we're getting this here. 50 million people watch this film, as Lyman said in his interview with IndieWire. Yeah, they were successful. But to do that kind of against those that were making the film, especially when you already had agreements, that's where I have problems with Amazon, is when they go against the agreements they had already made. But sticking with the question of Amazon or Barbara, thing is, characters have to change. Development has to change. I would not mind a Money Penny series, because the thing is, if you're going to make, my only thing is, if you're going to make a James Bond-esque character, make it her own. Make it 008, 006, something new, something different. Yes, if you want to do a spinoff, I have no problems with that because everyone else is doing it. And if you're trying to stay competitive and keep the franchise alive, I can see where that would have an argument and have some footing. I don't know. I just don't know if I can agree with Amazon going behind people's backs.
No, definitely not. Amazon being, I mean, that's what makes everybody so weary, scared, angry at corporations, because they throw the weight around. They feel like they can just switch up, and that's why I commend Barbara for standing up for it.
No, I couldn't agree more. Any final thoughts on Superman or James Bond?
Still wear your underwear on the inside of your pants. Nothing's changed from last time. Superman be the only one that does that.
I couldn't agree more. And with that, that is the end of segment 2, your main news. Coming up next, as always, what you should know before you go. Hang in there with us. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You've made it to segment 3, what you should know before you go. Thank you so much for sticking with us this far. We love you. If you will give us a like, a share, maybe leave a comment, depending on where you're watching, we would really love that. If not, as always, we'll wave you along as you go by. But again, thank you so much for being here. Moving right into segment 3, we've got a lot to go over, so we're going to give you quick, in succession, one news piece after the other, what's going on in the world of cinema that might not have needed a deep dive as we usually go through in segment 2. You ready, Jake?
I'm ready, man.
Awesome. First up, Greg Fraser, the Oscar-winning cinematographer of the first 2 installments of the Dune franchise, will not be returning for the third, Dune Messiah. Will be replaced by La La Land and No Time to Die director of photography Linus Sandgren. Jake, how will this affect the next installment in the franchise?
I think we'll see possibly a different look. I mean, he's not going to be able to run rampant. He'll have director kind of looking over him, but director of photography means a lot for the look of a movie. So La La Land is more fresh on my mind than No Time to Die is, but I remember both movies being somewhat darker in the sense of lighting, and so La La Land was a lot more intimate and even like the apartment scenes or in the jazz club, they're dark, they're not well lit, and then this drastic comparison to Dune being it's a desert planet with a massive sun, and it's hot and it's bright, and even when they're like dueling at the end of the movie, it's very bright in there. So we'll see what happens, but I think we're definitely going to see a change in lighting, I think.
Oh, of course. And the thing about Sandgren is he is an award-winning cinematographer. So it's not like they're just getting some bum off the side of the street who doesn't really know what he's doing. They're going to be fine, I think. The thing is, my only concern is Sandgren going to try to recreate what Fraser was doing? If that's the case, they're in trouble. You need Linus to be what he is, but exactly to your point is what he kind of brings in terms of look to the table, is that so much different that it kind of changes the look of the story? That can be very jarring for people who are accustomed to what Dune 1 and 2 are. So I'd be interested to see just the overall feel Up
Well,
next,
it might
oh, sorry,
come
go ahead.
down to sorry, it might come down to like what the story is. I mean, what's this third installment of Dune? It could be a more serious, darker feel to it. So it might play in his favor. If he's unapologetically himself, then it could go off without a hitch.
Very good point. Up next, a film I'm personally excited for. I only saw the trailer very recently, but A24 releases the first trailer for Alex Sharfman's Death of a Unicorn. The film stars Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Will Poulter, and so many more. According to IMDb, quote, the film is about father-daughter duo Riley and Elliot when they hit a unicorn with their car and bring it to the wilderness retreat of a mega-wealthy pharmaceutical CEO. This film seems wacky and out of left field. We talked about the originality of A24 earlier. They talk about this from this unicorn carcass that they think is dead. They talk about having the cure for cancer and all this and that. And then at the end of the trailer, Mama Unicorn comes out and she is mad. This seems like a really unique take on the unicorn in terms of a horror style, in terms of a thriller. And Paul Rudd obviously brings a goofy take to anything he's in. So it seems a little bit silly too. Jake, what do you think about the potential for Death of a Unicorn?
I think it's got the potential to be one of those like comedic slashers. I mean, this is a unicorn killing people, right? So, um, I think even Jenna Ortega hits a vape in the trailer, and so I think it's going to be one of those movies that if you get all your buddies together, I can imagine like college groups going to see it. Just as one of those fun movies to do.
It just seems like it's so much fun. And again, like I said earlier, in the world of remakes, reboots, sequels, and prequels, A24 is showing up with originality. And that is where my interest peaks. I think Paul Rudd, just in the teaser, Paul Rudd and Ortega have a strong bond. You can kind of see it just in their back and forth that they've had in the quick quips. If it's showing that broadly and that brightly in the trailer, what's it going to be like throughout the film? So I'm very excited for Death of a Unicorn. Moving on, Jared Leto reportedly set to play Skeletor in an upcoming Masters of the Universe film at who else? Amazon MGM, directed by Travis Knight with a projected release of June 5th, 2026. Leto joins a decently loaded ensemble as they go about a live-action take on the classic 1980s cartoon. I can tell you, Jake, my mom is more than excited about the possibility of a Masters of the Universe live-action remake. She has always talked about how much she loved this cartoon as when she was a kid, so much so that she tried to get me to watch a modern take of the series when I was a kid, and I remember very vividly opening up for my 10th birthday a gift that had the series in it, and I looked at her and I said, "What is this? I have no idea." And she was heartbroken, and I think she's still a little heartbroken at the fact I didn't know who He-Man was to this day. Other cast members include in the film so far. Other cast members include Nicholas Galitzine as He-Man himself, Camilla Mendez as Tila, Idris Elba as Duncan/Man-in-Arms, Sam C. Wilson as Trapjaw, Hafthor Bjornsson, the strongest man in the world himself, and former Game of Thrones alumnus will be playing Goatman, and Kojo Ada nabbed the role of Triclops. They will also join Alison Brie as Evil Lynn, Skeletor's second in command. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Masters of the Universe, its general synopsis is, quote, the most powerful man in the universe, He-Man, goes against the evil forces of Skeletor to save the planet Eternia to protect the secrets of Castle Grayskull. Jake, are we excited?
I'm super excited, man. I remember He-Man from not only the memes, but I remember Dad being about the same way about He-Man as your mom. So I was subject to watching He-Man, and the cartoons are a little goofy, but I'm excited for this because I'm always about the meme culture, and so if there's a chance that they do a little bit of fan service there and and recreate one of the memes, I'm always there for it. So, but Jared Leto as Skeletor, that is, you want to talk about memes, man? You're gonna Jared Leto wherever he goes, there's gonna be something. You're gonna get a little bit of Morbius stuff coming out about it. I have not heard about this in terms of media. So once this gets out to like the general social media, the public, I think we're going to start seeing some Skeletor Morbius mashup memes pretty soon.
Yeah, for those who might not know, if you've seen the skeleton-faced, purple-clad, like cape-looking dude who shows up and he says Skeletor's fact of the day, that is who we're talking about. That's who Jared Leto is going to be playing in terms of just character. And man, why does he keep taking characters like this? Just goofy characters.
I don't know, man. He hates himself. I don't know. I don't know why he keeps. He's torturing himself. Maybe he's into that. I don't know, but it's Morbin time. It's skeleton time. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's I can see it. I can see this. I hope it doesn't flop because of Jared Leto, and I don't think it will. I think it'll capture enough nostalgia from everybody, from the parents that drag their kids to it. I think it's. Do we know a rating yet? Is it going to be a PG-13 at least?
No, nothing yet. This comes out in the summer of 26. So
it might be one of those things our parents drag us to.
Potentially.
Even us.
Yeah.
20, 23, 24-year-olds. Our parents are going to drag us to this movie.
Jake, I will be 25, so I don't mean to feel. I know, I feel so old, man. But no, Jared Leto kind of also looks like Skeletor. He's just an odd looking individual. He's got that like cheekbones, very skinny. So I'm excited to see. I think this film will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they had to name the movie Morbius before I was like, oh, it's Morbius. I thought that was Skeletor. Skeletor doing it in this movie.
Same thing, really. Last bit of news from this past week. A report, Evil Dead Rising director Lee Cronin is set to helm a new, quote-unquote, terrifying adaptation of the Mummy franchise set to be released in 2026. You guys remember the Brendan Fraser early 2000s franchise. That is completely being tossed out the window. A new take from Evil Dead Rising director Lee Cronin is on the way, written and directed by the man. The film will be produced by Atomic Monster, Blumhouse, and Cronin's own production house, Doppelganger, so a couple of really high-end horror production houses are involved. Cronin was in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and he said, quote, "This will be unlike any mummy movie you've ever laid eyes upon before. I'm digging deep into the earth to raise something very ancient and very terrifying. Plot details are under wraps. Everywhere I've read anything about this movie, that is what they use, and I think it's for the pun." Jake, what do you think?
I'm not big on the horror, but of course it's like, why are we adapting? Why can't it be a mummy horror movie? I guess it's to coattail for money or for what's brand recognition, I guess, for people to actually go watch it. But it's like, why does it need to be part of the Mummy franchise? Does that make sense? Like, why can't it be its own thing?
And I think it's meant to be, but you're hitting on kind of the same thought that I had too. It's like, we've talked about this before. Do you need to? Is this something that is necessary? Do you have to? Because the thing is, the Mummy franchise is loved. Like, people love those movies. They're not necessarily scary. That part is where I'm interested, and where I think this could be something completely unique, is that apparently it's going to be scary. The goal is to make this a horror franchise. I've never seen, at least in my mind, I don't remember a Mummy movie that was a genuine horror that wasn't made pre-1970. So I will be fascinated to see, as details unfold, kind of what direction the story is going to take. Is it actually going to be freaky? Is it going to be kind of like The Nun, where it was not super scary? It was just kind of just Or is it going to be something super unique? And you say that, like, again, look at what A24 is doing. Death of a Unicorn is super unique. You don't need these major titles and these IPs to be successful. The fact that we're talking about Death of a Unicorn is success for A24 in and of itself. So for the sake of the story, I'm hoping it's a completely unique take and not just, we'll take kind of this overarching story and just put a bunch of jump scares.
Oh, yeah, and I have no doubt that all these, the producers, so Blumhouse makes awesome stuff. Even though I don't watch horror stuff, I hear awesome things about that production house. So I have no doubts that it's going to be an awesome movie. I'm just like, could it not have just been a Mummy movie? Why did it need to be in the same universe franchises as the other ones? I mean, how often do you actually hear of a horror about a mummy? Like, that's not, it's not a thing anymore, really. I don't think.
No, I couldn't agree more. Just don't, like, I understand it's like a new take on the same franchise, but just don't call it The Mummy. do something new. And if it's going to be a new
Because
story, sorry, go ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, it reminds me. I actually did go and see the Mummy with Tom Cruise in it, and that was in 2017.
Yeah,
So, and it flopped. I thought that movie sucked, didn't it? Didn't it get
it was
pretty
bad.
bad ratings?
Yeah, people
Yeah.
did not
So,
like it.
yeah, it frustrates me, man. It frustrates me that you can't just make a movie anymore without having to have an IP behind it.
Yeah. And again, hoping that more companies will be like A24 and come out with these original films. With that, that's the end of our show. We've gotten through all 3 segments. Jake, any final thoughts for the beautiful people at home before we give them away and let them go do their own thing?
Jared Leto might visit you tonight. We'll see.
Don't
warning.
look
Just a warning.
behind you right now. Don't do that. And on that note, stay safe. If you're driving, grip the steering wheel. Jared Leto's not in your back seat. And if you're trying to sleep or do something, don't open the closet. Be on the lookout for a holiday special Christmas edition of Beyond the Screen. See you, everybody.